Hello, I decided to make this video to talk to you about education in 2023 as we prepare to enter into 2024. What does it look like? Is education still a priority for many individuals in the country? What we need to understand about education, as well as the difference between degrees, opportunities, as well as formal versus informal education. Now, I would certainly say this. I understand that everyone does not need to go to school. In fact, college isn't for everyone. That's just the way it is. However, whether you elect to do a traditional college program or a non-traditional program, which would be a vocational program, you're going to need some form of education. That would be my message to every young person, but also people, period. So what we know is that HVAC, welding, plumbing, electricity, and other vocation programs similar to that, a lot of those people are making well into the six figures. So a great way to utilize skills in order to make money in comparison to those who attend traditional universities who may never get to the $100,000 salary. So with that being said, I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to push education, even though those that know me know that I'm an advocate for higher education. And as a man who has several degrees of my own, I understand the value of it as well as the doors that it can open for you. What led me to want to make a video like this is the reality that I am the only Black psychologist in a state hospital system. Recognizing that made me want to ask questions. And I didn't know if it was because of some systematic issues or if it was a lack of opportunities or if there were unqualified candidates. So I decided to reach out to the Oregon Director of Education to have a better understanding. And I was reminded that unfortunately, sometimes we just simply don't qualify for some of those roles. With that being said, I will touch on this. In the United States, we have a 13.6 Black population, which there are 46.9 million Black people in the United States. I'm choosing to approach this specifically focusing on the Black community because I also recognize that there's a disparity between Black men and Black women. Listen, it's no secret. Black women are doing their part, they're kicking butt when it comes to higher education. And somebody out there watching may even say, well, why does race have to do with this? Because it does. Historically, Black/African Americans have been deprived an opportunity to pursue a higher education. So then we formed HBCUs, and more opportunities were provided for Black students to be able to get a higher education. And I was proud of what they were able to accomplish, and still proud of the HBCUs that continue to draw so many different brilliant young Black minds. But HBCUs don't just accept Black students. There are students from all demographics there. So we want to make sure that I address that as well. But I've already spoke about the 46.9 million Black people in the United States. Out of that number, 7.9 million Black people have a bachelor's degree out of nearly 47 million. Well, then when you begin to examine that and say, well, how does that break down with Black men and Black women? 24.9% of the Black population of males have a bachelor's degree, and 30.8% Black women over the age of 25 have a bachelor's degree. So that's both black men and black women over the age of 25 that have bachelor's degrees. That does not include our most recent graduates. So I want to pause there for a second to simply acknowledge all of those who recently graduated during the fall or / winter commencement, depending. So congratulations to you. You have proved yourselves worthy to complete the task and journey that you started. So now that I have given you your flowers, I also must give flowers to the number of black women who continue to lead the way in higher education. In fact, we have 1.5 million black women in the United States that has a graduate degree, a master's degree to be exact, compared to 841,000 black men with a master's degree. And these numbers represent black men and black women who only have a master's degree, or they chose to stop at the master's level, which there's nothing wrong with, because truth be told is some degrees require a master's degree and some don't. For example, for individuals who choose to go into psychology, you're going to need a master's degree. So when I meet people and they tell me, oh, I studied psychology in school, I'm pretty sure that you did. But you're going to need a master's degree. And in some states, you're going to need a doctorate degree. You're going to need, whether it's a PhD in psychology or a Psych D, you're going to need a post degree as well, along with the clinical training, the clinical hours, the state licensures, the board certifications. So, and that goes, so all of that is additional education that will be required. But since I'm talking about the doctorate in psychology, that's known as a professional degree. In fact, professional degrees are necessary for law, medicine, pharmacy, Juris Doctorate, nursing, dentistry, and there's some other fields where professional degrees are required. Psychiatry, well, psychiatry is technically a medical degree, and that's a specialty. But getting back to what I was saying, when it comes to professional degrees, 139,000 black women have one of these professional degrees compared to 125,000 black men. Now, one could say, well, wait, but there's so many black doctors in the community, right? Or people that have been identified as doctors. Well, I just gave you the numbers according to the United States Census on education in 2023. And that's because they pulled those numbers from what's known as accredited universities. Now, there are other programs out there, perhaps, that aren't accredited, that didn't get included, but those are the numbers. Well, when we look at the non-professional degrees, but just doctorate degrees, and I'll use an example of what one of those would be a doctorate of business administration. That's a doctorate degree. However, that's not a professional degree, because that degree isn't necessarily required, and there's truly not even a market for that degree. And that's a part of the education that we got to begin to have about education or higher education. So when it comes to doctorate degrees, there are 221,000 black women who hold a doctorate degree in comparison to 151,000 black men. It's also important to note that when it comes to the graduation rate of black men, college graduates, only 40% of black men graduate from college, which unfortunately also means that more than 60% do not complete what they started. And the reasons can vary. However, we do have to do a better job with ensuring that the message isn't about going to college, it should be about graduating from college. So oftentimes when I hear people talk about college, I listen attentively, because I notice that they will say, oh, I attended college here or I went to college, but they don't say that they graduated college. And that's because so many unfortunately drop out. So when we look at the degree programs, we also have to be educated on that, because for far too long in the Black community, we just been satisfied with our babies going to school. And as long as they came home with a degree, then that was good enough. But the truth is, a lot of those degrees that they go get, I will use general education, for example. Those of you who are older remember that. General education degrees, fine art degrees, drama, theater, liberal arts degrees. Oftentimes, unfortunately, they're not really going to be able to make a living with those degrees. So that's why you have so many people who have degrees, but they aren't working in their field because they simply can't find the jobs. But staying right there for just a moment, if you're going to pursue a degree, you first need to understand what's all required in order to thrive in that field. Do you need the graduate degree? Do you need licensures? Are you going to need to continue with a lengthy internship? These are things that you have to understand. And when I consider the numbers that I represented here today, and recognizing that, one, we have only a 40% graduation rate for Black men in the United States. We have to do a better job. I hear far too many people that boast about the schools that they went to, whether it's HBCUs or PWIs or the schools that we support based off of the teams that the schools have. There's a difference between being a fan and being an alumni. And we should want to have more alumni than we have fans of sports programs. Listen, I'm a football guy, love it through and through, root for a couple different programs. But that's because I graduated from one, which makes me an alumni, and I'm a fan of the other one. However, I got a degree from the school that I'm an alumni that I couldn't get at the school that I'm a fan of. But that comes through that education piece of doing research, making sure that I understood what program that the University of Oklahoma had that the University of Georgia didn't have, that was specific for what I was trying to achieve at that time. And so I say all of these things simply to point out that, one, I'm proud of those of you who are living up to our ancestors' dreams and who have challenged yourselves to pursue higher education. I applaud those of you who realized that you didn't need the traditional education and you decided to get a trade. And as well as just make a plea to all of my brothers out there who may not put the proper value on education, whether formal or informal, and to say we need to increase these numbers from 40% graduation to 100% graduation. That would be ideal, because it does not make sense to me, even as a member of a historical Black fraternity, Greek organization, that we are predicated on education in those organizations, but these numbers do not represent that we have enough people who have actually completed degrees. Maybe because in undergrad, you can start the process, pledge, and then they get their membership, but that's a different story, so I don't want to dive off too far into that. But because it refers or it pertains to education, I touched that just temporarily. So I hope that someone watching this video will understand the importance of it, as well as saying, yo, this is a problem. We do need to do a better job. And we do need to have more conversations with young folks when they decide to go to college on what they need to know. And that way they can compare and see, hey, is education, is college the right track for me?